Welcome to the Balancing Ambitions podcast. I'm your host, Kim Menapace. You are not alone in your pursuit to balance family life, work, side hustles, and taking care of yourself. Balance is not easy to achieve by any means, but we can all work to get better at it together by sharing our stories, tips, and wisdom. Let's dive into this week's episode. All right, I'm super excited to introduce our guest for the Balancing Ambitions podcast this week. We have Jenn Kim on today. Jenn Kim is a VP of Global Benefits for a major entertainment company in the music space. Jenn and I met at orientation weekend at Boston College almost 20 years ago. I know we're dating ourselves there, but I felt like that's important to note because we do go way, way back. Jenn, welcome to the show and feel free to introduce yourself and add to that.
Kim, it's so good to see you. So yes, we met 20 years ago. I do work in the benefit space for an entertainment company. I'm also the mom to two very young kids. I have a 5-year-old and an almost 3-year-old. I'm originally from the Boston area. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but moved to New York City for a job at my current company. I expected to stay there for a couple years and then move back to Boston, and that didn't happen. I'm still here, and I'm now raising my kids with my husband in the suburbs of New Jersey. I don't know how that happened, but here we are. And we're loving New Jersey. We're in Westfield, so we love it. But yeah, that's the past 20 years in a nutshell.
Thank you for catching me up on all of
Yeah,
this.
in case you didn't know.
Well, and I
But
think
our kids are almost exactly the same age, by the way.
we are
Like
living
within a
parallel
week.
lives there. Because your son was also born July, and then our
Yes.
daughters were about 2 months apart. I know, very parallel lives there.
I know. I think of you often. Like, I know I don't get out to Massachusetts very often, but I do think, like, when things are tough, I'm like, Kim's going through it too. Like, we're going through the same
Oh,
stuff.
we could spend this whole episode on parenting.
I
I'm sure
know.
we'll touch upon that a lot,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely going through, just going through, like, I was gonna say the gauntlet, but I don't know if that's the right term, but definitely it's been the most challenging, but also a very rewarding phase where it's
Yeah.
so foundational for our kids and their confidence, emotional regulation, social skills, and
Oh
everything.
gosh.
And I,
Yes.
I am being so tested beyond how I ever thought I'd be tested, but I also feel like I'm upskilling so quickly too. And it's very
Yeah.
cool to see how they benefit from that so quickly too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's start with kids. So
Yeah.
tell me about your little ones. And yeah, what's something that's a fun fact about each of them? And yeah, what's been your biggest surprise with parenting?
Well, so Alex is 5 and Hannah is 3. And I'll say, oh my gosh, so many surprises from like when you're first holding like your first baby and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize my life was never going to be the same, like ever. And I'm sure we'll come out of that at some point and come up for air. But it is, it's such a metamorphosis where you're almost born at the same time as your kids. In a lot of ways, you're just like, okay, I got to get this new routine down. And it puts everything into perspective. Like anything at work, I can definitely handle because like the really tough stuff is at home. Like, and not that I'm having like a particularly tough time, but it's just like the stakes are so much higher with your kids. To your point, like you don't want to mess up parenting, right? Like it's one thing to miss a deadline at work, but it's another thing to like miss picking up your kid at school. Like it's just different stakes, right? So I would say that's really surprising. And also what was really like humbling is the lack of control that we have. Like, right? Like your kids are your kids and you're so blessed with them. And like, but like any expectation that you throw upon them, like it's, you got to parent the kid that you're given. And each one is so different. Now that I have two, it's like, oh my gosh, like that's so cute that I thought I had control. Like I really don't. Like, and you just have to like learn them and you have to like respect, who they are. And that's so rewarding. It honestly makes me a better manager. It makes me like way better at dealing with conflict at work. I'm like, oh, I get this. Like this is an adult having a tantrum. Like I deal with this at home all the time, right? So I think it's equipped me with like a new set of skills and like and an emphasis on like how to be a sturdy leader. I follow Dr. Becky all the time. I don't know if you follow her. I love Dr. Becky. And so she's actually come into our work to do some talks for us because I started a parents and caregivers group at my company called The Village, which like when I first branded it, people were like, "That's an M. Night Shyamalan horror movie," and I'm like, "Yeah, that makes sense. Like parenting and caregiving is a horror movie sometimes. Like that checks out." But Dr. Becky always talks about being a sturdy leader. And like, in order to do that, you have to be regulated. Like, you yourself, you have to take care of yourself, which I'm sure, like, when I think about this, Kim, I'm like, oh, this is like, well, I know you're Kim Minipace now, but I know you as Kim Marchand. And I'm like, this is Kim Marchand's like bread and butter because, like, you are somebody who I think about. And I'm like, you're always firing on all cylinders. Like, you're doing your workout. You got your nutrition on lock. You're like, you're getting your kids in the activity. Like, so I use you as like an inspirational kind of like point of reference in my life all the time because um you have to focus on yourself first. Like you really do in order to like model for your kids how you like a good role model in order to be regulated so you're not like at your wits end with a tantrum. Like you need to be living your best life as a parent in order for that to kind of like manifest into your kids' lives. So like that I think that's the challenge and the goal every day is to like be in that space. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Oh,
Yeah,
there's so much I want to unpack
I
here.
know.
I love that you started, we call them employee resource groups, and we actually have one for parents and one for caregivers. The
Yeah.
caregiver was new. So I love that. And I love calling it the village.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that horror movie, so I didn't even get the
Yeah,
reference.
it's a little creepy.
But I think that one thing I want to hit on that is a challenge and a difference between coworkers and kids is we have probably been very selective with choosing our environment and working with very reasonable people,
Totally,
not toxic environments.
totally.
We move on when a job is not a good fit for us and we aren't a good fit for it. And so I think that it can be really hard when you're dealing with people who are blank slates on skills and tools to deal with everyday life turbulence.
Yes.
And every kid is going to have strengths and weaknesses. And I think that understanding your kid, and I love something else Dr. Becky talks about is our job as parents is to be curious and get to know our kids as best we can before they're gone from our
Yeah,
homes and and our influence. And so I just, yeah, I'm a big fan. I talked about her in my first introductory episode because I really, really am a big believer and follower of her stuff. I think it's amazing. And I don't reference it as much anymore because we're deep in other therapies for,
yeah.
I'll talk about it now. My son got diagnosed with ADHD and anxiety 2 months ago. So we're doing home therapy, in-office therapy, talking to psychiatrists. So this has been a whole new world for me and not just learning, the foundational things I learned through Dr. Becky's videos. And you have to watch them on repeat. You don't just learn
Oh my
watching it
gosh.
once. You
Oh
have
my
to
gosh.
watch it and see where you screwed up
You need
again and then go
it
back
in
and
the
try it
bullpen
again.
this time when you're about to blow a fuse. Like you need to just have it on loop. Yeah. I'm thinking about getting like a picture in my office that says sturdy leader. So I just like constantly look at it and be like, that's me. That's what I'm doing right now. That's what I'm doing right
You could get there's these little words projects bracelets. And so whatever I'm working on at the moment, I put on a bracelet and hold on to it. So Dr. Becky sells the little ribbon kind of hair ties that
now.
have a couple of her
Oh,
key phrases. And then I love these little words projects where you can do gold or other beads and
she
stuff. So
has
I have
such
one.
good mantras. Such
Yeah,
good
she
mantras.
does.
I
So
use
there's a
one
three
for
pack.
Hannah because I told you my 3-year-old switched to a big girl bed and now she's like getting up at night. And I'm like, when I put her to bed, I'm like, Hannah is safe. Mama is near. Hannah's bed is cozy and warm. Like, and she like repeats it to herself. It's really cute. It's not working, but it's really cute.
And they remember that too. The simpler you keep it, the easier it is for them to latch onto it too.
Yeah.
One of her mantras is, Logan is a good boy having a hard time, or I'm
Oh, that's such a
mom having
good
a hard time. And
one.
Logan repeated it back to me and messed it up a little bit. He's like, "It's okay, mommy. You're a hard mommy having a hard time." And I loved that he got 90%
He
of
got
it.
it.
It made me laugh, but they does sink in. They're just sponges right now, whether you know it consciously or subconsciously, which
Yeah.
is one of the coolest things and also the scariest things. There's quotes about how 90% of their wiring is done by 3 years old. And you're like,
Oh,
what? But
oh, I
you
didn't mess
can,
that up.
yeah, exactly. But you can rewire, and both of us are rewiring all the time in our
Sure.
30s. But I think that you have to remember that when you hear that scary statistic there, about wiring and how foundational those first 3 years are.
Oh my gosh. Have
And
you heard
Dr.
of
Becky's even referenced that point before. It's crazy. I
yeah,
think the other thing I want to talk about is I do not have it all together. I feel like with working out, nutrition, sleep, I'm actually actively working on getting proper sleep and not sacrificing sleep to get to the gym
I
because
am so proud of you.
I know I
Because
got the
like
aura.
I actually that was the one thing in my because I know you're like you're going all out and that was the one piece that like I've studied a lot on sleep science for work and that's the one
Yeah.
where I'm like, oh, this is like extremely foundational to every piece of cellular repair in your body,
Yes.
right?
And this is helping me hold me accountable, getting the aura ring to
Your
get
aura
data
ring.
because
Yeah,
it's easy to measure how many workouts you got or use an Apple Watch to see the quality, the quantity
right,
quality of the workout. But I
right.
think sleep is harder if you don't have a device helping you with that.
Yeah.
And so I needed that accountability, and now I'm pivoting on how I'm not working with my personal trainer right now. I paused because we're in the middle of moving and
Oh
all the
my
stuff with
gosh.
Logan and everything. So I
Well,
said, hey, I'm going to pause right now because I was
yeah.
getting stressed not getting there as consistently. And
Yeah.
so I am doing more yoga, with friends. Or,
Oh,
yeah.
I
So
love that.
yeah, and then I'm
Yeah.
squeezing in a workout when I can, and I feel a little bit more liberated. Just doing what I feel like. Still some of the movements, my personal trainer program, but just less reps or whatever.
Yeah.
Feels good in that day. So yeah.
It's very your life is not a static thing, right? So like it makes sense that your routines have to shift and change with like the different seasons and things that you're going through. Like
Mhm.
I was looking at my Peloton the other day. I'm like, it's become a clothing rack. Like let's do something else. Cause I'm like, well, I'm not working out because I have the Peloton. And I realized like, let me just shift away from that. Like, and that kind of freed up my space. Like it's not, I don't just have to do the Peloton. Like I don't need to feel guilty about not doing it right now. Right.
Yes.
So
Yes, and I
yeah.
think giving that grace and also just trial and error to different, I think my chapters of and phases of doing things were longer, and now they're much shorter trials and errors. The
Yes.
personal training, programming, now the yoga with friends. And I think you just have to pivot to what's appropriate for you at that time. Still serving the other needs and goals of your life. So
So
I,
my current workout routine is Pure Barre, which is so
uh,
like Newbury Street in Boston in our 20s. Like I haven't changed my workout really because but after having two kids and like having my abs like completely stretched to like the nth degree, I'm like, you know what? Let me do a full year of like core repair and see
mhm.
how it goes and like do some like reformer Pilates and do Pure Barre. And honestly, like I know reformer Pilates is like in. I know that's like the big thing. I think nothing beats Pure Barre for me in terms of like just holding a plank for like 2 minutes. Like that's gonna get me every time, right? And so I did that. I averaged about like 2 or 3 times a week for the past year.
I was going to ask you, how long has it been?
Yeah,
How's
it's
it
been
going?
a year, a full year, and, I am, 1, much stronger, right? I'm much stronger, but 2, it is still so hard.
Mhm.
So I'm like, I don't know if it's ever gonna be easy. I'm a lot stronger. I'm starting to get back to the level of strength that I had in my 20s, I would say. I'm starting to get there, but it's slow. I think middle age is like you gotta like sell your soul a little. You gotta make a deal with the devil to do anything in middle age. Like 20s, it's like you bounce right back from everything. Um, but yeah, it's sometimes the path to progress is not as steep and quick as I would like, but like you hold on to the small wins, you know?
And I think that we're both realizing those more um subtle types of workouts where it's bar yoga, flexibility, core strength is
Yeah,
so important. So I was thinking about this as you were talking. I feel better than I felt in a long time, but I've been doing a lot more stretching. I've been doing a lot more.
yeah.
The core, I was doing 10 minutes of yoga a day for this year. And
I
I,
saw that.
so I
I
haven't
love
talked about,
that.
I haven't talked about so I wasn't working out at all come January 1st this year, and we had come home on New Year's Eve from a long 4-hour car ride, and I was just so tight from sitting and driving, and I was like, "I'm just gonna throw my yoga mat down and do some yoga," and then I just said, "Hey, I need to keep this up. I need to start somewhere, and 10 minutes a day is manageable." I kept it up through end of September. What happened was we were painting parts of our house and doing some home projects, and I laid down at, like, 11:55, and I realized I hadn't done yoga, and I was even having trouble trying to, like, calm my mind down and go to bed, and I was like, "You know what? I'm trying to keep up for the bragging rights, the accountability and all this, but is this gonna serve me in this moment where I actually need to
Yeah,
calm my mind and body down, and I don't
yeah,
need to get up just to keep this streak going for
yeah,
300 days or something." So I
yeah,
intentionally let it not continue, and I've still been doing it here or there, but, that was hard because 'cause I'm so follow my word and everything, but I thought, what am I trying who am I doing that for? What am I trying to
yeah.
accomplish? Who am I trying to prove something
You're
to?
very introspective that way. You always have been. I remember at Boston College, when we roomed together for half a year on, I think it was junior year, right?
Yep, yep, because I
Where
went to
we were in the
Paris the
same
other
city.
half.
Yeah. And I would see like you always journaling and like taking like notes and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, wow." Like you are somebody you're spending a lot of time like strategically, like in like, reflecting and planning. I love that. Like I aspire to I've just started journaling with Alex, actually my 5-year-old. So like every night we do something and I'm trying to like build a growth mindset for him. Like,
Oh, I love
where it's
that.
like, little they have little affirmations on there. But we're doing a little journaling and he's kind of, I'll be like, say something good about yourself. He's not like really getting it yet, but like he'll get there. Whereas my 2-year-old is like, I am awesome. I am brave. Like the kids are really different, right? Alex is like, I eat breakfast. I'm like, that's one thing, yeah. That's good. That's a skill. It is for a 5-year-old. But yeah, so I'm trying to get in early, on the ground level with their brains and start wiring them to be positive because like so much of what we experience and what we live is just in our head, right? Like to your point, like your framing of yoga, like is really that was the biggest thing for you. It was like the mental side of it versus the
Mhm,
actual physical benefits of that 10 minutes of yoga. And yoga
mhm.
is supposed to be like zen. It's supposed to be grounding. In fact, that's another goal. I really want to do more yoga this year because I kind of haven't done yoga in a while, and I used to do it all the time. I grew up doing yoga with my mom every Friday night, actually, which tells you how much of a social life I had in high school. I did yoga with my mom at the local gym in Chelmsford, Massachusetts.
Your mom's
Uh,
really cool, so I totally respect that.
Yes, totally. Um, but anyways, so yeah, and it is like the other day I was walking home and it was daylight savings from work and I twisted my ankle because it was dark out. So like that sets you back too. And so you constantly just have to I'm not running a marathon in the next few weeks, right? Like there's just stuff I feel like at this age you can just like look the wrong way and you'll tweak your back. Like there's just stuff that happens. So you just have to be like gentle and stretch. But one thing that I'm loving is saunas. I'm going to like the local LA fitness near my house and I'm using the sauna. I'm trying to do it like 4 nights a week.
That's awesome, I
And
love
I'm in
that.
the sauna with a bunch of like Instagram influencers. Like they're taking all these pictures. I'm like in the background, like
Especially where
munching
you're
on.
located near New York City, I'm not surprised by this.
Yes, yes. So that's actually really fun and kind of a nice way. And then my phone overheats, so you can't really bring it in. So you have to like unplug for a second, which is like so sick that it's like the only 10 minutes of my day where I'm like not on this. It's yeah, really need to detox on the screens too.
I think we all do, and I go
Yeah.
through phases of it too, especially I've been more intentional on the do not disturb setting, especially if kids are home and Dave's home, I'm like, "Why am I not on do not disturb?" I'm not getting a message from daycare about, "Hey, they have a fever, we're watching something," or
Yes.
anything of that nature, so why do I have it, and why do I keep just going
Yeah.
through the habit of
Yeah.
having it?
Why do I scroll at night right before bed? Like stealing time for myself, right? It's like, oh, that's talking about sleep hygiene. But like you're supposed to go to bed and wake up at the same times every night, right? What's your bedtime? What's your hour bedtime?
Oh, man, it's as fast as I can after the kids go to bed, basically,
Yeah.
is my goal, so sometimes it's as early as 8 or 8:30 if we got them to bed early and
I
they,
love it.
you know,
I knew
dipped
you'd
back.
have, like, a power answer like that.
Yeah, I think that I actually start to get more anxious as I get closer to 9:30 or 10, but it was more because I was getting up at 3:50 to go to the gym at was it 3:50? No, 3:30 to go to the gym at 4. So, but then, because I've let that go, I sleep till 6:30. Logan has his, Hatch,
Yeah, the
alarms then,
green
so
glowing
he
clock.
comes yeah, he comes
Yeah.
in at 6:30. So sometimes I wake up before that, but that's helping me get that over 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep, and my sleep quality is much better than I thought it would be. So, so yeah, I try to get to bed as fast as I can. Usually it's before 9:30,
Do you
even
do
before.
anything funky like mouth taping?
No, I don't do any of that. I don't do any supplements or anything. I do
Yeah.
read before bed, but sometimes it's my Kindle app on my phone or my Kindle. But that's what I try to do instead of that habit of Instagram scrolling or Facebook.
Yes.
And so, because Dave and I are big into mindset right now, so there's a lot of books and material and essays we read, and
Yeah.
so I'll rotate through those, and just let those kind of mull over in my head. I'd rather some people do it in the morning. I found that because of the kids and I'm just on as soon as I wake up. Logan legit walks in my room, flips the covers off,
Yeah.
gives me my slippers. Like I just legit have no space. But and
Yeah.
and we have a little bit smaller, cozy house. So if I get up and start moving around and walking, he hears me. He's like, "Mom, I want to get up too." So there isn't that space to do that in the morning, but at nighttime I have that more guilt-free and there's a little bit more control and calm in the day where I can have that time for reflection. And it's funny you comment on that. I didn't remember or realize you noticed that, but I had started that journaling or just writing and reflecting, I'd say freshman year. So yeah, by junior, and
Oh,
I found one of my original notebooks from freshman year a couple of years ago.
yeah.
My aunt had given it to me from I think the Met Museum in New York City, and
Oh,
then I started, and it turned out to start being like my therapy
yeah.
about what am I stressed about or what am I feeling or what's making me happy right now. And it helped me connect dots that I didn't realize were connected. So it's funny that
Yeah.
I'm still very much that way. Here's my notebook right now.
Oh my gosh, I know, I know. It there is something about writing it down that makes a difference, right? And
Yeah.
like the giving yourself the space to just kind of empty your thoughts, right? Because like it's just so rare these days to have that time unless you're deliberate about it and carving that
Totally.
out.
I
Um,
also it
yeah.
reminds me of in the Harry Potter movies and books, I think it was Dumbledore had some machine that he used to like help get the thoughts into like this orb thing.
Pensieve.
Yes, and that's what I think about when
I'm
I
feeling
write this.
my Harry Potter nerd
I didn't
status.
even remember the terminology, I just remember that point.
Whoops, I know
Thank
it.
you for filling it in. We
Whoops.
make great trivia partners here.
Yeah.
But that's what I think about when back when I first would start writing and emptying my thoughts because it needs to come out. It either needs to come out through your voice or your hands, or else it can just kind of have negative effects like getting you
Oof,
sick, run down, and
ugh.
all of that
Have
stuff.
you
So
read the book? It's I don't know if you remember who it's by, but they were like pretty prolific on the podcast circuit for a while. Like Brene Brown had them on, and they wrote a book called Burnout and has burnout like 4 times across the page. Have you seen this book?
I haven't. No, I'm
Okay.
curious now.
It's pretty eye-opening in that they're like neuroscientists who have studied the phenomenon of burnout and how to mitigate it. And they're talking about how stress and your emotions live physiologically in your body. So if you're not like you're consuming all this stuff all day, and if you're not like actively releasing that in some way, then it like the emotions kind of get stuck and build up to the point where it becomes chronic illness, it becomes insomnia, it becomes like chronic stress and burnout and like inability to function. So like you really do almost need to digest stress and release it like daily. And so they have all these like, you need to laugh. You need to have a 20-second hug. You need to like go out and play. You need to like go out and be deliberate. Like if you're working out, you need to actually like visualize that you're letting stress out, right? Like you need to visualize your stressful state. And that book to me was like a very good um check because also with you can tell with your kids as you're parenting, like, oh, I'm a little less resilient than I normally am, right? Like there's little like to me, I can stay regulated at work all day, no problem. And when I get home, it's like, ah, like the sounds and everybody's touching me. And so like the quickest way for me to see like kind of resilience and how like susceptible to burnout I am is like through my kids, which is like
Mhm.
another emphasis on why you really need to take care of it, because like the ultimate goal is to model for them like healthy processing of emotions, which is like that's the hardest thing about parenting, I would say.
It's
Yeah.
so true. It's the burnout book, and what you're talking about reminds me of some books I'm reading right now by Louise Hay. She has
Oh
the book,
yes.
You
The
Can Heal
body
Your
keeps
Life.
score.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
that's an oh, I forget who wrote that one. I have read that one. It's a very dense book. I haven't finished
yeah.
it yet.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
Louise Hay, it's You Can Heal Your Life and You
Oh,
Can Heal Your Body. And
yes.
it's similar where they say, I had strep throat 6 times last year, and it talks about lack of expression.
Wow.
And yeah, and I definitely I have 2 little kids in daycare who also got strep
Well,
throat
that could be
almost as
that
many
could be
times
a
as I did.
contributing factor.
But, I was talking to mentors of mine, and they're like, "There's something here with expression and, what's going on
Strep
there."
throat is
So
no joke too, because if that goes undiagnosed, it becomes scary.
it was horrible. Actually, when I was supposed to see you in New York City last year in February, I was on, they had to put me on steroids plus the antibiotics because it was so bad. Because I didn't realize that I could get it again. Not like I didn't realize I couldn't get it, but I just never crossed my mind that I had it until it was so bad that I honestly thought I was going to have to get my tonsils removed. It was so
Oh,
bad. So,
yeah.
but going back to the Louise Hay, she talks about all these different,
How are
um,
you now? Are you recovered?
I'm good, I'm good. I've had a couple sinus infections, so I need to work on what
Yeah. Well, you're
the
sleeping
mental
more.
reason that
You got
caused.
your aura ring.
I got my Aura ring, I'm
Yeah.
sleeping better, I'm trying to have less fight or flight reactions during the
Oh
day.
my
It's
gosh.
funny.
What's working for you? Tell me.
I think Dave and I both noticed that those typically happen with our kids.
Yeah, oh,
So I don't
100%.
know if we're like you said, staying regulated at work and with kids, with your coworkers is easy. It's the kids. It's modeling for them, and it's also showing up to be strength and a sturdy leader for them. And if you are tired, fatigued, stressed, anything else, you can't just help be that support system for them in the moment, never mind model for them, you know? So I
Yeah.
think that I totally agree with that. And yeah, the Louise Hay book's been very fascinating for me
Okay,
to.
I'm gonna write that down because yeah, I'm gonna add it to my Libby list for my train rides into the city.
Perfect. All
Yeah.
right. That's one of the ways you're efficient. Let's talk about, yeah, let's pivot
Oh,
from parenting and health. So, yeah, what are some efficiency hacks you have? You're a VP at a big company in New York City,
yeah.
and you have 2 little ones. So, yeah,
Yes.
what have you found to be able to work
Okay.
full time and do a great job with all these things?
So I have a lot of things going for me in that like I have a lot of like my environment is set up for like a lot of privilege. Like I have um a super connected and involved spouse, right? My kid's dad, my husband, um, Jay. Hi, Jay, if you're watching this, listening. Um, he's so active. Like he's definitely doing 50-50, if not like 70-30, right? Like because I'm in the city 4 days a week now. Right. So super strain on my week because like I'm going my one way commute is 90 minutes. So like 3 hours a day upwards, right? And so one, I'm using my commute time like a crazy lady. Like I'm the one who's like pulling out my computer and like on my hotspot on my phone and working like on that time, or I'm like going, also have a nanny, which is like another, again, setting up I realize that's like a very privileged thing, right? I could say like, I've got to really support, like there's a lot of single parents who like can't say that they have these things, right? Um, so I've got a nanny who's amazing, Barbara. And, she's like the sweetest. I think having really quality childcare takes off a lot of the mental load, right? That would be like the guilt associated with things. Being away, which of course anybody still has, but she at one point said to me she raised 5 kids in like the town that we're in, which I'm new to, right? Like we just moved in a couple years ago. So she's like been a very good like, let me show you what's what, and here are the pediatricians and here are the schools and that kind of thing. But she said something really sweet, like probably a year ago, where she was like, I now know that parents who adopt kids love their kids as much as their own biological kids. Cause she was like, that's how much I love your kids. And like, that's when I was like, okay, like the fact that I have somebody who like loves my kids like their own is like a huge blessing, right? Like that's a really big deal for us. Also, I during COVID, I lived with my parents outside of Washington D.C. for we packed a bag for 2 weeks from our apartment in New York City. Alex was like a little baby. And we're like, daycare shut down. Can we come stay for a couple weeks? And we stayed for 2.5 years. Okay. So there was that. And then work was like, okay, we're still here in New York City. Why don't you come back? So I had a ton of help from my parents. And then when we moved to Westfield, we found the nanny who we love. And also my parents sold their house in Virginia and moved to New Jersey. So like,
Oh, I
yes,
didn't
I
realize
know.
that.
Yeah. So we now have like Jay and I are trying to go out to dinner this Saturday night and we're like, hey guys, can you come help us? And so like they're close enough to help out, right? So like they have been very firm after taking care of my kids for 2.5 years that they will not be the primary caregivers of my kids, even though they want to be the fun grandparents who swoop in and like have fun with it. They want to play pickleball and do their own stuff now, which is totally fair. But they're helping out like probably a couple times a week. So I've got that. So basically I set up the environment in a way where like it's going to work. Jay works from home 4 days a week and goes in one, right? So we flip flop. So so somebody's always there to pick up Alex and somebody's always there to drop him off at school. Hannah will start school next year. And so that works. And then I've been honestly a lot more critical of where I'm spending my time at work too, because the opportunity cost of every hour that you're putting in at work. And if you're coming home at the end of the day and you haven't really produced much, it's like you feel that much worse about it, right? So I'm really protective of my calendar now, and I'm really protective over making sure that I'm making like an impact and not just sitting in meetings. So I'd say that's the biggest thing that I've done since. And I remember my chief human resources officer when I was pregnant with Alex, and she was like, you're about to become a lot more efficient. And I'm like, no way, I am so efficient. Like I cannot get more efficient. And the answer is you can just work longer hours when you don't have kids, right? You can just like burn the midnight oil and do it again, rinse and repeat. But when you have kids, it's like you want to be there for bedtime. You want to be there for some core moments. So you need to get better at working on a shorter amount of time. So like you need to be a little bit of a psycho with your time. You have to be a time manager, and you have to be almost an essentialist, right? So I'm just doing the essential things that either bring me joy, add value, or like are really serving something. And it's almost binary. Like, is that serving me or not? If it's not, it's out, right? And it's kind of like that with everything. On my best days, it is as binary as that with every decision that I'm making. Like, is that food I'm putting in serving me? Is that, and of course I have my vices, everybody does. But that's, and probably some of that is healthy too, but that's kind of the way that I've coped. And I've gotten really good at taking walking meetings, because a lot of my commute is walking. I have like about 30 minutes of walking one way, so an hour a day. So if I can like break that up into and take some calls while walking to Penn Station or walking home from the train, then it's just that much more efficient. So I'm catching up with friends, I'm catching up with my parents, I'm like planning schedules, I'm RSVPing to birthday parties. I'm like, Amazon, I don't know what I would do without Amazon. Like, I swear that's why my mom stayed home. She was a stay-at-home mom. And like all the stuff that she did was like go to CVS and buy like toothpaste and like go, and now it's like Amazon has enabled us to do so much more, but the burnout factor is like that much higher, because you're just like the volume. Like at times I do feel like, oh, I'm doing the job of my mom and my dad like together at once, like that's, and when I'm in my victim mentality, I'm like, oh, it's so hard. But when I'm like really in my best space, I'm like, I can do it. Like I can do it. Like I've got this. So yeah, that was a long-winded answer, but like some days are good, some days, are still a flop, but the routine of like making sure I'm doing something, even if it's like a meditation on the train, right? Like something that like is kind of, sometimes this is like totally embarrassing, but I take out my like red light LED wand and like do a full facial on the train with all my skincare, and people are coming on trying to like sit next to me, and I have like my red light, like have a red face, and they're like, maybe we won't sit next to her. So it's like an added bonus that like nobody's next to me on the train because I'm doing like my gua sha. Like it's a lot.
You've never had flies the expression my mom says is like, "No flies on you." I feel like that's been you. You do not care, you just do you,
Yeah.
and everyone loves it.
Literally a very, yeah, no shame. No,
I
I
love
have a very high threshold for embarrassment.
I there's so many efficiency hacks in there, I don't even know where to begin,
Yeah.
especially doing
My
skincare
red light therapy
on
on
the
the train.
train. I think you should get the full mask one though that Jenna Kutcher are,
Oh,
advertising
yeah.
for
I've
instead of
tried
the
those.
little
I've
pen.
tried those. Like the doctor, what's it called? I'll remember it. He does the peel pads. The doctor, I'll forget it. But yeah, I like that one, except it makes my eyes feel a little weird.
Oh, okay. I
This is
haven't tried
bright.
any of those yet. I'm still very
They really work.
antsy on
Red light
skincare.
is where it's at.
I love that. I wanna ask you one more question, then we can go to wrapping this up because I
Yeah, I
wanna
wanna
keep
hear
this on
your
time.
efficiency hacks too. Have you already covered it on past podcast episodes? But, like, I wanna hear just selfishly.
Oh, I'll talk, yeah, at a high level. I'd say a lot of the same things as you.
Yeah,
We don't have a nanny, but we have amazing full-time daycare. We have my mom and dad, but my mom is the one that's more helping with the childcare, like picking them up from daycare if we have
yeah.
an event that night. And they're an hour away, but they're both retired and they just love it. They're their only grandchildren, and maybe they'll be their only grandchildren even of me and my siblings. So I think they're just soaking up all that time with them. Delivery of things from Target delivery, Amazon delivery, Instacart. We were doing meal delivery service for a couple of years too. Already prepped meals for Dave and I. So all of those things are helpful. We have had a nanny before when we were switching daycares and there was a gap. So that's been amazing. And you
Yeah,
can find people who, yeah, care for your kid just like they're their own. And
yeah,
I think that's really, really special. They're a part of the family instead of it being so transactional. And I think just spending the time to find the right fit for your family can help. But I think those are the efficiency and being so critical about your time. I think, especially several months ago, I had so many meetings on my calendar and I will go through and I just try to reject like 20% of them. I'm like, do I have to be at this meeting? Is this more status? Am I going to be sitting there and multitasking? And if I'm going to sit there and multitask, then I just have to say no instead
yeah,
of just be polite and go and then
yeah,
not pay attention. And
yeah,
so I think that that's some of those hacks that for driving, so I drive the 90-minute commute right now,
yeah,
so I can't do some of those things on the drive, obviously, I can call and catch up with friends, family, etcetera, but
yeah,
I'm not I think I have 2 birthday parties to RSVP to right now, so I
yeah,
wrote them in my to-do list to
yeah,
check the date and get back to those 2 people because 'cause they're in December, so I think that that's hard, there's always a running to-do list, and, that stuff gets squeezed in at lunch or, I got to daycare a couple minutes early, let me check in and do XYZ on my phone. So I'd still love to find more time boxing and
yeah,
compartmentalization because I think you probably were similar to this where I benefited so much from that pre-kids and pre-COVID. And then parenthood and COVID made that just shook that all up. And it was hard to just go to the office and do my hours and then go home and not really take work home most of the time.
yeah,
Now, when you're working from home, you have a more cozy space, you have one kid, two kids,
yeah.
it just became a lot, and I'm in the office 40% of the time, and then we're going up to 60%. So 4 times a week is 4 days a week is a lot. So how I like being in the office because we just have a new high-rise building that opened in Boston 2 months ago. So
So
it's
nice.
fun.
Is it in the FiDi?
It's right across from Berkeley School of Music. It's 1001
Oh,
Boylston. We built it over the Mass
wow.
Pike. Yeah, yeah. And Lego is going into our building. They're going to be in
No
the
way. That's
their head.
right where my old apartment was.
Yes,
I'm
I almost sent a photo to you because I was like, "I think that's Jen's apartment building." I'd
yes!
already creepily told you I'd walk by, our
Oh my
favorite
gosh,
Starbucks
I
we
wish
used
I
to
lived
go
there
to.
so I could just see you all the time.
Yes, when you're in Boston, I'll show you, but I was sitting
Yeah.
eating lunch at one of the cafeteria booths, and I said, "Oh my goodness, I think that's Jen's apartment building right there." Yeah, on
Oh, you're
Common
so
Ave, right?
good. Yeah,
Yeah,
Commonwealth, yeah, Common
because
Mass Ave.
I think when we left when we were flying back from visiting your parents, my mom dropped you off at your apartment, and
That's
that's where we met.
right.
Yeah, she doesn't know Boston as well as my
When you
dad.
look at it from your, office space, it's the bay windows that are green. There's a red one and
Oh,
a green one, so it's the green one, top floor.
okay.
That's my bedroom window right
Oh,
there.
that's too funny. I'll
Yeah.
have to look on Monday or Tuesday when I'm
Shout
back.
out to 386 Comm Ave.
Too funny.
Yeah,
So
that
what do
was the
you think of being about being in an office?
so I love it for a lot of reasons. I have like really solid people, and my team is amazing, like beyond amazing. And so we have a really positive work environment. Like it's impossible to be upset about going to the office because you've got like I have a gym upstairs that I use. I've got like they give us 50% off of food. But when it comes to when it comes to the actual work, I love it. Like I actually love having the space too to like completely lose myself at work. Um, but when it comes to leaving the office, then I'm like I'm a mad woman dashing to Penn Station in the middle of rush hour, right? So like it's actually there are some silver linings to the tougher commute in that like it forces me to move. Like on the days that I go into the city, I'm getting 10,000 steps easy. Like before breakfast. Like so I'm and when I twisted my ankle, I realized how physical my commute was because I'm like I got to go up these stairs and I've got to go across the park and so it's actually really good in terms of having something that forces me to move and forces me to interact with a great city. New York City is like such a privilege to work in. It's like it's if not one of the top, major cities in the world, right? So, and I love the neighborhood we're in. We're in the Flatiron. It's so cute. The original Shake Shack is right across from the building. Like you walk in, you might see an artist. Like it's magical. And everybody in this like music company that I work for is like they all have a really high EQ. I was really shocked because I'm like when I first took the job, I'm like I'm gonna be with a bunch of like music executive prima donnas, and they're gonna be so demanding. And but I think because everybody has to work with like creative souls of an artist, like everybody has to be nurturing. They have to be like well versed in feelings and positive work environments because you can't produce beautiful music in a toxic environment. You can produce beauty out of something toxic, but you don't want the team that's surrounding you to be toxic, right? So that was the biggest plus to me. And my old boss used to say, he's like, once you work for the company that I work for, he's like, it ruins you for all other jobs. And like, that's truly, I did not intend to be at the job this long. So like, it really is a very, very special place. And I love it. And I love the people my job is to take care of like everybody's well-being. So it's like a super privilege in that like, I step outside of the industry and my sole focus is just on people and making sure that they're what I don't even have to do anything disciplinarian to them. I don't have to put them on like performance reviews or anything like that. It's just literally what do you need? What do you and your family need to be well? And so, um, from that standpoint, I can say truly that my job is amazing and I wish I lived a little bit closer to it, but you make up for it. You find ways to make it work. And the job is 100% worth the crazy commute. And by the way, my commute is not even considered to be crazy in the tri-state area. That's like a very common commute. I'm just used to living within walking distance of an office and just walking. So like that's kind of my baseline.
I love that, and you can have a desk job and still have a very active job was one of the big things I took away, and I noticed that too with, we have a flight of stairs from our bottom floor to our top floor, and I work on the bottom floor. I'll get 33 flights of stairs in a work day.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah,
great. Quads of
you
steel.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then again, the Oura Ring, the Apple Watch, all those things help you track that stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I echo about what you said about the people you work with, how the emotional intelligence is so cool to like. I wouldn't guess that for a big
Yeah, you
music
wouldn't have
company,
guessed
but
it. I didn't.
yeah, it
I
would be
didn't.
obvious, but it also now makes sense in retrospect. And I think that I never thought about how at your level you don't have to deal with pips and all these other things that are in
No.
your
Yeah,
department.
yeah,
But you one time I forget what your exact phrase was, but you're like, my job is to make sure people only have to worry about their job. They don't have to worry about
yeah.
benefits and IVF rounds being covered and this and
Yeah.
that, because
Yeah.
that distracts them from their core work, which is more
Yeah. Yeah.
creative or this or that. And you're like, that's my job, is to make sure they only have to focus on their job and all this stuff is taken
Yeah.
care of
It's like
for
being a little
them.
mini mayor, right? Like, it's like, "Oh, what are we gonna do for time off? What are we gonna do for, parental leave policy? Are we gonna give extra time if there's a premature baby?" Like, all these things that, like, oftentimes, actually in the US, like, the government doesn't get as involved as it does, like, because I'm global. So I know, like, in Europe, I don't have to do as much, like, or, XYZ country. But in the US, a lot of it does fall to employers to like set the parameters of what work-life balance looks like, what your parental leave looks like, what does your bereavement leave look like. And so yeah, it's truly a privilege to be able to like bring really progressive things to a people who really deserve it, and like, there's like I love my people. So when you can take care of them, it's just like extra rewarding. And I've had employees bring in their kids, like, oh my gosh, over my 9 years there, I've had like the most amazing moments. Like if I were to leave tomorrow, like there's such a legacy of stuff, right? Like, oh, like I've had employees being like, I had my kid because of your policy, like I wouldn't have been able to. I've had a lot of employees say, I was thinking about leaving for Silicon Valley, but you had the same fertility benefit, so I was able to stay, right? So like a lot of I had one employee bring in their 4-year-old, and he was like, he was able to climb up the stairs to his dance recital because of the extra physical therapy benefit that you built in. And so like he could go to his dance recital. And like just like puddles on the floor, right? Like it just reminds you that there are things that are much bigger than a job. And so if you take care of those things, um, you get a really loyal employee base and a very grateful employee base and a more productive and a more results driven employee base. That you can't do anything with it. Just like parenting, you can't do anything without your health. You can't do anything without your mental health, your physical health, your financial health. All of it is so connected. And you really have to be holistic about it. So, like, yeah, financial health is another huge one. Um, so like again, the privilege of what I do is that it forces me to learn a lot in these subjects, which actually has a really beneficial kind of downstream effect on my own life, because I learn about how to take care of other people, and in doing so it like prepares me on how to take care of me and my family in a lot of ways. So like if I'm going to teach somebody about financial wellness, I better know it myself, right? So like it forces you to have well-being at the forefront of like you and your family, which is like the greatest gift that this job has given me. The better that I am at my job, the more well I am in turn, because I can't make other people better if I myself have no cup to pour from, right? So like that's the you know in terms of what I like best about my job. It has given me the ability, and it's also given me the ability to look at other demographics and types of life that I don't have access to and study those. So like, really, it's just I could go on and on and on about it, but it's I do think for any company that prioritizing culture and well-being is the foundation to long-term sustained performance. Like period. Like you cannot perform long-term if your people are not well.
I think that's a mic drop there.
Yeah.
I think that what a beautiful gift and responsibility you have,
Yeah.
and you don't let that responsibility crush you. You seem to let it empower you and really inspire you, and I love that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a constant learning curve. The most impactful stuff that I've done is from listening to employees who are like this, because you can't possibly go through every situation yourself, right? So you have to hear from the people who are going through it and what they need, and then like being able to adapt quickly gives you a competitive edge too, right? Because like where something's not built, maybe we can build it, right? Like maybe we can do something. So like to constantly get better at the situations that people are going through and how to like get in your toolkit and find things that will help them, right? So that's the name of the game. A lot of it is listening, a lot of it is like diversity, equity, and inclusion, like listening to every person who comes through the door and finding out what their experience is and making sure that like you're comprehensive enough to handle it.
I love that. Well,
Yes.
thank you so, so much, Jen. I want to be respectful of your time because I know you're a very busy lady. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today so, so much.
Yay!
You have a great rest of your day and a nice weekend with your family. As always, if you enjoyed this show, please leave a review because when you leave a review or share an episode, you make it easier for someone else to find us and benefit from these stories and tips we share. There is a link to everything we talked about in the show notes. Thank you all for listening to the Balancing Ambitions podcast and have a beautiful day.